switch, persistent volume, non-persistent volume. So today we will talk about the role-based access control. Uh, but before talking about the role-based access control, we need to know namespaces. Okay, so let me just talk about the namespaces first. Then we will talk about the kubeconfig and then role-based access. So let me just let me open the right. Right. Now consider I have a cluster. So this is my cluster. And in this cluster, I have my master node and worker node. So this is my cluster. On top of that, we are having the pod network, which is Flannel we are using. Now consider there is a development team, right? And this cluster is used by different teams. Means they want to create the pod, they want to create the deployment, services, etc. Everything is getting created on this cluster. Okay, so this is our master and these are our worker nodes. Say this is worker node 1, this is worker node 2, right? Now, there are some other teams. For example, there is a testing team. So now test team wants that our pods should not be visible to the development team, or development team wants that our pod should not be visible to the testing team, but everything is getting created on this cluster only. Or maybe consider you are having a very big cluster, and on that cluster, what do you want? You want that these this cluster I can use for client 1 and client 2. But there should not be any interference between client 1 and client 2. So client 1 resources should be isolated from client 2. Okay, so there could be any number of use cases where you want to do the segregation. Now what I'll do here, so what I will do, I will create a virtual cluster. Okay, I'll create a virtual cluster. This virtual cluster is for my development. Same way, I will create one more virtual cluster on top of my actual cluster. This is for the testing. Okay, so this is for development team. So it means development team related pods, development related, say, pods or deployment, etc. All the resources will be in this virtual cluster, and something which is related to the testing team. So their pods, their clusters will be into this virtual cluster. So this is called a namespace. So where we are segregating the clusters, right, on the basis of the different teams or different client requirements, right? So this is the namespace for test, and this is namespace for the development. Now let us see practically where we can see these namespace and real-time use case for this. So what I'll do, I will go to my MobaXterm. Okay, and first thing I will say kubectl get nodes. So I want to see all the nodes are in ready state. Oh, worker 2 is not in the ready state. What's wrong? It's not started. Let me see. This is worker 2. Oh, worker 2 is having some problem. Okay, no worries. I will power it off and start again. Actually, I did a clone of my worker 1 and created this virtual machine. Probably that is the issue. It is powered off. Let me start this. If I start without GUI, will it work? Let us see. Maybe GUI is having some problem. Okay, so okay, at least we are having worker 1 where we can run our pods. Okay, so now if I say kubectl and get pods, so as of now you can see here no resource found in the default namespace it is saying. So knowingly or unknowingly, we are using a namespace already, and that namespace is default namespace. So in this default namespace, uh, what is default namespace? What are the other namespaces? We can just check that. If I say kubectl get ns or namespace, you can write. So here you can see these are the namespaces. Argo CD is a separate one which I have created for different purpose. But default, this is the kubeflannel, which is for our port network plugin. Node uh, lease, which basically when the nodes are in the ready state or not, this will be uh, the namespace for that. For kubepublic, right, which is basically used for public resources. Kube system, this is very important. Monitoring is again not by default, you will see. So because I was working on Prometheus and Grafana, that's why it is I have created this namespace. Now Kube system. Kube system is the namespace where all the resources related to the Kubernetes system point of view, like your master component, like something uh, which is required for the admin point of view or system point of view, especially internal architecture to maintain, some resources are in place and those are inside the kube system namespace. Let me show you that one. If I say kubectl get pods, so if I run this, it will show all the pods in the current namespace, and my current namespace is the default namespace. So if you are not having any specific use case, I don't want to create um, for admin related task, I don't want to create node related, means you, if those are the use cases, then you can use those namespaces. But if you are normally creating the applications and you are simply just saying that I want to create a pod, I want to create a service, so in that case, you know, this in that case default namespace is used. Okay, we can create our own custom namespaces also. So let us see get pod, but I want to see the pods under the kube system namespace. So I will say under namespace kube system. So here you can see these are the pods which are running in my kube system namespace. Okay, under my kube system namespace. So see here API server, proxy server, scheduler, master, core DNS is the, you know, you can say it's a DNS for my services, those ports. So everything is running in this namespace. So now uh, let us see kubectl get namespace. So currently I'm in the default namespace, but how do I know I'm currently in the default namespace and how I can create a namespace? I can create a namespace simply. You can say kubectl create namespace, and namespace is say an example dev. So I have created a namespace called dev. So I'll say kubectl get namespace. So here you can see there is a namespace get created and it is named as dev. Okay, because for example, you want to keep all of your resources which are related to dev into that dev namespace, right? So now, um, now what I want to do, if I want to delete this namespace, kubectl delete namespace and dev namespace, right? So now dev namespace is getting created, getting deleted, and whatever is in that dev namespace, if you create some resources like pods or services, etc., so everything will be deleted. Now you can also create the namespace by using YAML. Okay, equal minus O YAML. Right? So kubectl create namespace hyphen hyphen. Oh, sorry, what I'm doing. Kubectl. What is that? Try run, right? Try run equals to client minus O YAML. Right? So you can use this script and you can use the script to create the namespace. Right? Now, so what I'll do, I will go to cd manifest and I will run this command and I will put it into the dev namespace.yaml file. Now I will say kubectl and create minus f dev namespace.yaml file. So namespace is created. Now if I say kubectl get ns, so you can see dev namespace is created again. Right. Now if you want, if you are in a default namespace and you want to create a resource like pod inside the dev namespace, how you can do that? For that, you will say kubectl and run pod, or I will say dev pod under the, with the image, say nginx under the namespace dev. So I need to explicitly mention that I want to create this pod under the dev namespace, right? So if I run this, so this time pod get created, but it is created under the dev namespace. If I see here kubectl and get pods, you will not find any pod because that pod is not created under default namespace. It got created under the dev namespace. So if I say kubectl get pods under the namespace dev, so now you can see, yes, my pod is in the dev namespace. Now, similar way, so there is a very commonly asked question, can I create a dev pod in my default namespace also? Because it is already in the dev namespace. So yes, you can do that. So two resources like pods can have the same name, and if they belong to different namespaces, so that is possible, right? Now, if I want to create a resource by using a YAML file, so what I will do, hyphen hyphen try run equals to client minus o YAML. So here what you need to do, you just need to mention that namespace into your metadata that I'm creating a pod, and uh, in the metadata, right? So you need to mention namespace, and namespace equals to wherever you want to create. Okay. So this I will just leave up to you. You just need to try this by yourself. Okay, to create another pod by using YAML file. Right. Now, we will learn the role-based access control also, but at this moment, first we need to see how I can switch from default namespace to dev namespace. For that, we need to use something called kubeconfig. Let me see my kube serial get node. My another node is okay. Some issue in my worker node too. Let me just restart that one. That always is in the running state. Let me power off this and let me start again. Probably I need to do. Yesterday it was working. All right, so let it be start. Right. So now, next thing is that how we can switch from one namespace to another namespace. Right? So how to switch? So there is a file which is a configuration file, and we call it kubeconfig file, and that is under your home directory. Under that there there is a folder called kube folder, and here you will find a file called config. You just check that, means sometimes it is config, something admin config, so it depends, right? But 90% it will be config only. So this is my file content. So what I'll do, I'll just copy, because from here it is difficult to read. So I will copy all this and I will put it into a notepad. I'll paste it here. I will just say language, which is here. Right. So here you can see API version. So this is a configuration file for my cluster. Okay. So if you don't have this file, then you will not be able to connect to the server. So this is my server configuration file. Right. So now let us try to understand this. Right. So first thing is the API version, right? In Kubernetes, we have seen that whenever there is a YAML file we are creating, on top of that, we are writing the API version. So here API version is V1. Now here you define the clusters, right? You can configure multiple clusters also in this configuration file. Okay. In our case, it is only one cluster, but consider you are working on AKS, EKS, and you want to configure it on your local system. You can do that, right? So now which cluster? So cluster name, you can give anything. This is the IP address of my master node. 6443 is the port number by which you can connect to the master node. Okay, 6443. Right. Now, this is the certificate authority. So there is a certificate key. See, whenever this is my master and it is having the API server. So any request which comes to the master, whether through worker node or from anywhere, right? So that hits to the API server, and this API server is checking this certificate. So if your request should come with the certificate, and on the basis of this certificate, it will authenticate you or authorize you that yes, this is a valid request. So this is a certificate authority or CA data. So where do you see this one? So if I go to my cluster again, and if I say cat or not cat ls slash etc slash kubernetes pki, right? So here you can see there are many keys and CRT files are there. So key is your private keys. Whatever is ending with the dot key, these are the private keys. Whatever is ending with the CRT or PUB, those are your public keys. So now CA.CRT and CA.key. So if you are aware of asymmetric encryption, so that is basically happening here. Your request is coming with the public key. Okay, this key, and it is validated with the CA.key. So if I open this file, which is cat slash pki and ca.crt, right? So a base 64 conversion of this is that whatever we see in our certificate authority. You can convert that also. So if I say, I think base 64. Yeah. So if you see this data, ls0 this, so this is this data only. Okay. Ending with 0k. And here you can, so this is your public key. So it means if you want to connect to my server, you need to come with this certificate. If you are not coming with this certificate key, your request will be rejected. So Kubernetes is very secure, so it won't entertain any request which is coming from the invalid resources. And this is validated with the .key file. Are you aware of that symmetric and asymmetric encryption? Have you heard about that?
Uh, can you repeat that again?
That symmetric and asymmetric encryption.
I have heard that, but not
Yeah.
know when
So
used.
asymmetric is basically when your data is traveling on the network, right? So there is a public key and private key. So public key is validated because sender is sending that the data through public key, and that is validated with the private key. So mostly we use the asymmetric only, and Kubernetes is also following the same thing. So it takes the request with the public key, and if the public key is not resolved by the private key, then it rejects your request. All right. So now, right now, next one is, if you see here, context. Let us understand the concept of context. See, context. This is the context. So context is consisted of three parameters. One is cluster. Second is namespace. And third is user. So as I mentioned, you can have multiple clusters. So you want to create a context. So because we are having only one cluster, so here I will say use Kubernetes cluster. This is the name of my cluster. It could be Kubernetes 1, 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to give. That same you need to give it here. Okay. User is defined here. In Linux or Windows, we create the users, right? And we create the user, and that users are created through some command or by using some tool. But here In Kubernetes, it is not like that. In Kubernetes, whenever you are creating a user, you need to create the certificate data, means that key, and the private, public and private keys. Okay. See, this lecture is more related to the admin part, not the developer part. So today and tomorrow, whatever we'll be discussing, it is more focusing on the CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator point of view. So here you can see it is more related to the uh, uh, admin part. So we are doing that activity, means we will be managing our cluster. We are not creating pods now. Means, see, if someone comes to you and he say, can you create a pod? It means development. If someone says that, can you apply the security on the pod? This is not development. Okay, ultimately you need to do the development, but you need to do some admin work, security work. If someone says, hey, I need permission to create the pod, can you revoke the permissions? This is admin work. Okay, so this config file is more relevant to the admin part. So now this user, as of now, we are having the Kubernetes admin user. So I will use same Kubernetes admin user. And this entirely, it is called context. Similar way, you can have multiple contexts for cluster 2, for another user. We can also create the user. Okay. So now next thing is that if we have multiple contexts, what is the purpose of that? So consider this is my context 1, this is my context 2, and so on. I want to work on this particular area. I want to work under the namespace, say default. If you don't mention the namespace, like here in this context, namespace is not mentioned. It is by default, default. So here, what I want to do, I want to work in the default namespace. So this context should be my current context. So whatever is the current context, that will be your default namespace. Because so here you can see current context, Kubernetes admin this. So this is the name of my context. This is the name of my context. Right. So this is the name of my context, and my current context is this one only. So that is why I'm in the default namespace. If I put a different namespace here, and if I say current context this one, so that will be my current namespace, and we will do that. Now, touching this file manually is very dangerous, because if you make any mistake, whether it is a syntax mistake or something, then it will be you are messing up your cluster. So that is why we use commands to handle this file. So those commands are basically those commands which we use. These are uh, those commands are related to the kubeconfig file. Let me see, my cluster is worker node 2 is up or not. Oh my God, something went wrong, drastically wrong. Okay. All right. So now it is. So if I say kubectl config command, so all the commands which are related to the configuration file are started with config. Okay. So if I say kubectl config, and if I say kubectl config and view, so it will list whatever the file we have seen. So you can see that file. It will not show that that data which is encoded data like certificate, or so it will simply say data plus omitted. Okay. Now I want to see all the context. So I will say kubectl config and get context. So it is showing this context, Kubernetes admin context. Now, I want to see the current context. Current context is that if you are having multiple contexts, wherever this asterisk symbol is pointing to, so that is your current context. Okay. So now, if I say kubectl and kubectl and config and current context. So it will show you the current context. So this is my current context. So now, as I mentioned, context is the combination of user namespace and the cluster. So what I will do, I will create a context for my dev namespace. So I will say kubectl set context. I want to create a context, and context name I will say dev context. Okay, so this is my context name, or you can say dev hyphen context. And I want to use a cluster. So cluster name is I'm using because I'm only having one cluster. User, as of now, I have only one user, which is this user. So I will use this one, and hyphen hyphen namespace, which is dev namespace. So I want to create a context for dev namespace. Kubectl config, right? So dev context is created. Now, if I say kubectl get context, so now you can see there are two contexts. One is for default namespace and second is dev. Currently, I'm in the default namespace because asterisk symbol is in front of this. Uh, Asterisk symbol is in front of this admin namespace. I want to switch from my admin namespace to dev namespace as the current namespace. So what I will do, I will say kubectl and config use context, and the context name is dev context. So now I am switched from my default namespace to dev context namespace. Okay. Now, if I say kubectl get pods, it should show my dev pod. Why? Because currently I am in the dev namespace. You can verify that kubectl describe pod dev pod. So here you can see that my namespace is dev names. So this way you can switch from one namespace to another namespace. Do you have any question? All right. So now if I say kubectl get kubectl config get context. So it will show both the context. Now I want to delete. First, I need to switch to this context, and then I want to delete this dev context. So what I'll do here, I will say kubectl config and use context, which is this context. And now kubectl delete context, which is the dev context. Deleting context will not delete the namespace, right? And it will just delete the context. Oh my God. Right. So this is deleted. Now, if I say kubectl get context, so here you will see that it is having only the one context. Right. So this is how we are basically using the Kubernetes context or Kubernetes configuration file. Now, what is the use case for this? One use case is that if someone is connecting to your cluster, okay, so they need to have this configuration file. Otherwise, that user cannot connect that. Okay. So now, because let me do one thing. Let me go to my virtual machine, and here, what I will do, I will go to the network, and I will do a port forwarding. Let me see if I can connect from here. So I will say 127.0.0.1 and host number 6443. Open to 6443. Right. We'll try with this. Actually, I want to open this right to everyone. Let me see whether I can CMD. And if I say telnet to, let me see the IP address. And the IP address is 192. Right. So 6443. I'm not able to connect. Okay, no worries. We will do it on worker node 1. So this needs little bit, settings looks like. So I need to see that one. Actually, it should telnet to 6443. But it is not happening. Let me just do one more thing here. If I go to my tools, networks, and here, this is the network, input network, port forwarding. Okay, I will say hostful. Oh, I don't know. Oh, actually, I was running wrongly. It should be localhost. Yeah, it is working. So now what I will do, I will take this configuration file. I will take this configuration file and I will do some modification, or I will create a new configuration file and I will put it into my local system. On my local system, kubectl is already installed. So if I say command prompt, and if I say kubectl something, right? So kubectl is installed. So from my local system, I will connect to my cluster. Consider on my local system, I'm a developer and I want to have limited access. Okay, so you as a admin, so there is a request comes that Raman is a new user, and can you give him a limited access to a particular namespace? He should not access any other namespaces. So this is called role-based access. Okay, so to give the role-based access control, what I'll do, I need to follow certain steps. So let me just go to my notes, and here if I say github.com, and here you can see Kubernetes storage manifest. Okay. Oh, I did not put those notes. No worries. I have another devopsworld.co.in. I will update my notes. And this is Kubernetes. And under Kubernetes, role-based access control. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a namespace called finance. I'm creating a namespace, but before that, you need to take a copy of your config file, because we are going to modify that one. So I'll take a copy of my under root.kube and config file, and I will just put it under the same path. I will call it original config. Okay, because I'm going to make a change into this configuration file. So what I will do, I will create a namespace called finance. You can double check kubectl get namespace. Finance namespace is created. Now, next one is that I want to, right. So next one is that I want to create the SSL certificate. See, whenever you are connecting to your system, so you should connect with some certificate, okay, or that certificate keys. So I will use this command, OpenSSL generate certificate. I will call a user as John user. So I'm creating this one. So there is a key get created, John.key. So you can see John.key is created. Right. Now I need to create a signing request. So where I am saying that this John is he belongs to Java development group. Okay, done. Then I need to create a public key, and which should have a certificate.crd and certificate.key. So CRD file is to be created, which includes this certificate authority, right? CRT and .key, and it is valid for that certificate is valid for 500 days. Done. Now, if you see ls, we are having this john.crt file, right? Fine. Now, we need to create something called roles. Roles are nothing but these are the roles like permissions. I want to give on deployment, replica set, and pods permissions like get, list, watch, create, update, patch, delete. Right? So I'm creating a role by creating a file called role.yaml. So here I will say vi role.yaml file. This file was already there. Vi cluster role, I'll say. Okay. And let me see, is there anything else here? So this file, So here what I'm saying, for deployment, for replica set, for pod, I'm giving get list, watch, create these permissions. Okay. Now I will save this. Now I'll say kubectl and create -f crole.yaml file. Now I'll say I will create role binding where I will bind the user to this role. Means that user have these permissions. So for that, I'm creating this. This is called role binding for in my finance namespace for user John, and it will be bound to the deployment manager, which is the role I have defined on the top. Okay, so I will copy this and I will say C role binding.yaml file. So I'll say kubectl create -f C role binding.yaml file. There is some error. Oh, API version is not here. This is the API version. So created, two roles get created. Now next is that I want to create a user, right? And the username is, uh, I want to set the credential for John user. And I will say, take these keys, okay? And we need to change this path. So I'm creating kubectl config, set credential for my John user. And the keys which we have created, john.crt and john.key, that I'm referring here, client certificate and client key. Okay, so let us do that. Done. Then I'm creating a context for the finance namespace for user John, right? And I want to make this context as a current context. Done. I will delete the existing context, which is for the admin. Now, if I say kubectl config get context, so you can see there is only one context, right? If I say kubectl, actually there is a, if I say kubectl config and view, so still that user, admin user information is there. I want to delete this user also. So I will say kubectl config delete user and the username this. So I should have only John user. So I'm on worker one. I'll say sudo su login with a root user. Right. What I will do, I will make a directory under root dot cube. Okay. And then I will create a file under root dot cube and file name is config file. In that config file, right, I will copy this as it is. Okay. It is copying like this. Copy. Okay. Especially this certificate is not copied properly. Okay. So what I will do here, I'll say certificate authority data. And this one, oh, there is a gap also. Oh, that is the problem actually. Not this one looks like. So what I'll do, I will go to my master node. You have some time. I want to finish this.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Dot cube and config. Right. So somehow this is coming in multiple lines. It should be in single line. So because of that gap, I think now it is fine. Okay, so let me save this and try to connect. Here it is the problem still, but I will go to the worker one and I will paste it here. Okay, and the IP address is 192.168.0.5, and certificate I will put it under /tmp / this. Okay, so I just need to create these two files. Rest of the things should be fine. Let me save this. This is on worker one, right? So I will say vi/tmp and john.key. Okay, so here if I say cat john.key, so I will copy this data, paste it here, and john.crt. Right. Now let me from here, let me run kubectl get pods. That config file is not copied properly, looks like. This data especially. Uh-huh. Let me copy this way. All right, so what I did, I just copied this uh, certificate authority data, okay, and I just put it into my worker one. So here, if you see, when I use vi and config file, so I just copied that, right? And after that, it is started working. So no change, just copy paste, and I just put the temp files Under temp file, I have put my john.key, john.crt. Let us see. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'll write a command, which is kubectl and get pods. So here you can see it is showing that no resource found in the finance namespace because this user is only having the access to the finance namespace. Now, if I say kubectl get pods under the namespace, which is default, for example, so it will not allow to get the access to the default namespace. Okay, so that is what I wanted to show you, that how we can give a access, role-based access to the user. Okay, so we'll meet in the next lecture then. Thank you.